In ancient Sparta, death was not the end of a warrior's story. It was a final chapter of glory. To a Spartan, the way you left this world mattered just as much as the way you lived in it. From the moment a boy could lift a wooden sword, he was told the same unshakable truth. A true Spartan either returned home with a shield in hand or was carried upon it. A coward's life was a heavier curse than any death. The entire society was built on this code, and funerary customs reflected it with a cold, disciplined beauty that outsiders could hardly comprehend. A Spartan warrior who fell in battle met the highest form of honor his city-state could give. When the fight was over, if comrades could retrieve his body without risking defeat, they would lift him gently from the dust and carry him back with solemn respect. The body was not dragged or tossed aside. It was protected as fiercely as the living. In the moment of death, his identity became sacred, his name a permanent part of Sparta's history. Those who died away from home might never see their city again. But even then, fellow warriors performed rites to keep his spirit bound to brotherhood of arms. Death at home was treated differently, but not without reverence. An elder who passed from illness or age was still respected, especially if he had served Sparta faithfully in youth. The difference was in public memory. While the brave who died in battle had their names preserved for generations, most others slipped quietly into unmarked graves, part of society that valued collective duty over individual fame. For Spartan women, the highest honor was to die in childbirth, a sacrifice considered equal to die on the battlefield. For in giving life to future warriors, they served the state no less. Not every Spartan was given a grand resting place. The city allowed a marked grave only for men killed in battle, and women who died while bringing forth life. Everyone else lay in anonymity beneath the earth. This was not cruelty, but a deliberate statement. Sparta believed that only the ultimate sacrifices deserved to be remembered in stone. Equality in death was not the goal. Immortality through service was. When the body returned home, the preparation was done with quiet precision. It was washed clean, the dust and blood of battle removed. Warriors were anointed with oils, their skin glistening under the sun. They were dressed in the deep red cloak that marked them as Spartan, the same crimson that had struck fear into enemies across Greece. Beside them their shield was laid, not merely as a symbol but as a statement. This was a man who had lived and died under its protection. No gold, no silver, no excessive decoration. Spartan simplicity demanded that honor be shown through discipline, not extravagance. The family's mourning was intense but short-lived. Female relatives, who normally wore their hair long, cut it short as a sign of grief. Loud wailing and lamentation filled the air, but only in these rare moments were Spartan women allowed such public displays of emotion. It was not a weakness. It was a sanctioned tribute to the dead. A mother might cry for her son, but she would also stand tall, knowing his death had brought pride to the family name. The grief was for the loss. The pride was for the manner of his passing. Burial followed swiftly. Spartans did not let the dead linger above the ground. Within 24 hours, the body would be laid to rest. For those buried within the city, the grave was marked simply with a stone or wooden tablet bearing a name. For warriors, sometimes a small inscription noted the battle in which they fell. There were no towering monuments, no marble statues. Sparta considered such things a distraction from the virtue of the deed itself. If the warrior had fallen far from home, his body might remain where it lay, covered with the earth of the battlefield. Such places often became silent memorials where future warriors would stand, remembering those who had fought before them. For the city, the death of a warrior was not a private matter. It was a moment for the entire community. The names of the fallen were spoken aloud, so that none would forget. The state took responsibility for the children of the dead, ensuring they were raised and trained as future defenders of Sparta. This was both a duty and a continuation of the warrior's legacy, proof that his sacrifice had not weakened the city, but made it stronger. The customs were deeply rooted in spiritual belief. Spartans did not think of the afterlife as a place where comfort and luxury awaited. They imagined the souls of the brave living on to the memory of the living, their deeds echoing in every future battle. A coward, no matter how long he lived, was forgotten. A warrior, even if he fell young, was remembered forever. The funeral was not just a farewell. It was the city's public recognition that this man or woman had achieved the highest possible purpose. Even in their most personal moments of grief, Spartans remained guided by the state's ideals. The act of mourning was a ritual in discipline. There were no lavish feasts to celebrate the dead, no extended periods of weeping. The dead had played their part, and now it was the living's turn to continue the fight. This way of thinking turned even death into another form of service. It was not an escape from duty. It was the ultimate completion of it. Such customs may seem severe to us today, but for the Spartans, they were a source of unity. Each burial, each name spoken, reminded the living of the price of their freedom. The memory of the fallen was carried not in marble or gold, but in the actions and resolve of those left behind. In Sparta, the story of a life was told in the way it ended. To die well was to live forever. And yet, this was only the beginning. What most outsiders never saw were the subtle variations, the hidden rituals, and the rare honors given under extraordinary circumstances. Details that revealed a far more complex and sometimes surprising side to Spartan funerary tradition. Those secrets belonged to the next part of the story, where the ordinary rules could bend and where the dead could shape the living long after their bodies had turned to dust. When a Spartan king died, the entire city entered a period unlike any other. The mourning lasted 10 days, during which no public celebrations were allowed, and the atmosphere of Sparta itself seemed to shift. Citizens gathered in great numbers, joined by foreigners and allies, to pay their respects. It was one of the rare moments when strict Spartan discipline bent to allow public emotion. Thousands would cry out in grief, chanting praises of the king's life and victories. Even in a culture that valued simplicity, a royal funeral carried a sense of grandeur. His body was treated with exceptional honor, guarded day and night until burial. For in the death of the king, the state lost not just a leader, but a living symbol of its power. Not all warriors could return home for burial. Campaigns often took Spartans far from their city, and many fell on foreign soil. In such cases, the battlefield became their final resting place. Comrades performed rites as best they could, placing the dead upon the ground with their shields over them, both as a mark of honor and as protection in the journey beyond life. Earth was piled over the body to shield it from scavengers, and sometimes a small piece of that earth was brought back to Sparta to be given to the family. Even far from home, a Spartan was never left abandoned. His brothers in arms ensured his passage was marked with dignity. Women, though not warriors in the battlefield sense, played an indispensable role in funerary traditions. They prepared the body, washing it carefully and arranging it for burial. Their voices led the mourning, their cries echoing through the streets. This public display was not seen as weakness, but as a powerful affirmation of the dead's worth. A woman who died in childbirth was given a hero's honor, for she had given her life in service to the state's future. Her funeral would mirror that of a warrior, her name spoken alongside the bravest of men. Within these customs existed smaller, more personal traditions that outsiders rarely saw. Some families believed in whispering words of courage into the ear of the dead, so their spirit would enter the afterlife with the same fire they had in life. Others would place a small handful of soil from their home near the body, so that even if buried far away, the warrior carried a piece of Sparta with him. In keeping with the city's disdain for excess, grave goods were nearly non-existent, but these few symbolic gestures spoke volumes. When battles claimed many lives at once, as at Thermopylae or Plataea, mass burials became sites of collective remembrance. These graves were sacred spaces, often visited by the next generation of warriors. They were not adorned with towering monuments, but the ground itself became a monument, a place where the living could stand in silence and feel the weight of history beneath their feet. Over time, such places became rallying points for Spartan pride, a reminder that their freedom had been bought in blood. For those who fled battle, the story was very different. A Spartan who abandoned his post or showed cowardice faced complete erasure from public memory. No funeral rites were performed in their honor, no name spoken, no mourning permitted. Their graves were left unmarked, their legacy deliberately erased to warn others of the price of dishonor. Even their families often distanced themselves, understanding that shame could taint future generations. It was a harsh truth of Spartan life. To live without honor was a fate worse than death itself. Funerals, no matter how simple, were powerful tools in maintaining the unity of the city. They reminded every citizen, from the youngest child to the oldest veteran, of what Sparta demanded and rewarded. Children were brought to witness the burials of warriors, not to frighten them, but to teach them from an early age that bravery was the highest virtue. The sight of a mother standing proudly at her son's grave spoke louder than any speech, instilling in them the belief that the greatest life was one given in service to the state. Over centuries, these customs became inseparable from Sparta's identity. Other Greek city-states saw their funerals as cold, even strange, but to the Spartans, they were the purest form of respect. By stripping away unnecessary displays of wealth, they focused entirely on the sacrifice itself. This focus made their dead immortal in a way statues never could, etched not in stone, but in the minds and values of every Spartan who lived after them. The Spartan way of death ensured that the deeds of the brave were remembered long after their bodies had turned to dust. A name spoken during the funeral was a promise that their courage would not be forgotten. Their children and descendants would live under the shadow of that honor, expected to match it in their own time. The discipline, the simplicity, and the unwavering connection between life, death, and duty created a cycle that kept Sparta strong. In the end, a Spartan funeral was not just about saying goodbye. It was about passing a torch from one generation to the next, a silent challenge to live, and, if necessary, to die, worthy of the city they call home. In the eyes of Sparta, death was not the end of the story, but the moment it became legend.